Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado is one of the architects of the child tax credit, and he joins me now. Senator, this has been one of your central focuses as a U.S. senator. I was going to say your life's work, but that's maybe a little overstating things. But it's up there.
Well, I will say, Chris, I ran a virtually unnoticed campaign for president on this idea.
You know, I forgot about that, but you didn't. No, I'm kidding. That's true. You did run on that. No, but in all seriousness, like, you have worked so hard, and I know Sherrod Brown and others have worked with you to have this happen. It's been there. First of all, what's the takeaway, just substantively, if you're saying, okay, we ran the experiment, we tried it for a year. What is your takeaway about its success, failures, what you think of it?
It's been one of the most successful domestic policies in generations. We've cut childhood poverty almost in half. We've reduced hunger by a quarter. Just think about that for a second. We've reduced hunger in this country, where we have one of the highest childhood poverty rates of any industrialized country. We're 38th out of 41, and the poorest people, the poorest generation in America are our children. And what we've said is, we don't have to accept that as a permanent feature of our democracy, our economy, and it has worked exactly as we expected it would, which is people spending money to pay the rent, to buy groceries, and really importantly, to buy a little extra child care so they can stay at work to support their families.
I want to read you some reporting about your colleague, Joe Manchin, who I think is, you know, it's pretty clear he's not super on board with this. Of course, he voted for the American Rescue Plan that piloted this for this year. Huffington Post reporting that he has told several fellow Democrats he thought parents would waste monthly child tax credit payments on drugs instead of providing for their children, according to two sources familiar with the senator's comments. And I have to say that mindset is not limited to the senator. I think there's a lot of people who say, oh, you're just sending checks to everyone. What are they going to do with the money?
I think the anecdotal evidence in Colorado is people are spending it as I described it. I remember when the first checks went out, I met mom after mom after mom across the state who were saying that we were able to buy back to school clothes for our kids without bankrupting our families. These are the choices, by the way, people are having to make when we've had an economy that for 50 years has worked really well for the top 10% and hasn't really worked for anybody else. Finally, we have a tax cut for working people after we've cut taxes for the richest people in this country to the tune of $6 trillion. I can make all kinds of arguments about that, why that's welfare, why that's not needed. This is a time when families really need the help, and that's why we have to find a way to bridge the gap. We can't allow January to come without continuing the enhanced child tax credit. That's what we're going to fight to do.
Well, we all know there are no rich people who ever use their money to buy drugs, but in terms of
the other thing about that, Chris, I've been in the Senate now for 12 years. I've been there in the chaos at the end of a session when rich people's tax cuts are expiring. We never have any trouble extending those. And here we find ourselves in this position where, thanks to Joe Biden and the work of Sherrod Brown and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and others, we've actually got a massive tax cut for working people. And we're going to say, what? We want to raise taxes in the middle of this pandemic? And double childhood poverty, it's completely irrational.
Well, so you've got, I mean, unless the lay of the land is different than I perceive it, you got one guy to convince, and he doesn't seem to be on board.
Well, he's not on board, and that guy is my colleague, Joe Manchin. We have a difference of opinion about this, but, you know, no one in the Senate has a monopoly on wisdom. And I think that it is very clear that in other countries that have a child allowance like the child tax credit, the workforce participation rates are actually higher because it's easier for people to stay at work when they've got a benefit like this because they can buy childcare. If the car breaks down, they can get it fixed. And all I want to plead with Joe Manchin about is let's give it a chance to actually work. We've only seen it for 6 months, and the early reports are extremely positive. Let's let it go and see whether he's right or whether I'm wrong. And let's try to come to an agreement on other things that I may not agree with, but am willing to vote for in order to pass something for the benefit of the American people, which is, of course, why we were all sent to Washington to begin with, in theory.
That's going to be at the top of the priority list in the new year. I think something can be worked out here. Maybe we'll have you back to talk about how that is. I remain hopeful that something this good is not going to be destroyed for no reason. Senator Michael Bennet, have a great holiday, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great holiday, Chris.